Hello, welcome to Ahval TV. We have today Kyle Orton from UK. Kyle is known with his analysis on especially Syria for some years now, and also Syrian Kurds, as well as he is focused on conflict and terrorism besides Syria, also in Turkey. Welcome to Ahval TV, Kyle.
Thanks for having me.
Let me go right into my questions. First of all, I want to start with Afrin. It looks like the Turkish army took it. It took about 2 months. What is your overall view on the operation and the current situation?
The operation itself, I mean, if you just focusing on just as an operation itself, it went, I think, better than most people thought it was going to. So it had less casualties for Turkey, less civilian casualties, and less urban destruction than in previous counterterrorism operations we've seen in the last few years. So all of that was positive in a way, but it was never just about itself. I mean, Turkey chose to strike at Afrin because it wasn't defended by the United States. Is the one area of Syria where the YPG, PKK, SDF, whatever we're going to agree to call it, was supposedly defended by the Russians, but the Russians pulled out as soon as Turkey indicated it was going to go in. So Turkey was able to strike at that place, and the intention is to make the United States take its demands further east more seriously, particularly over Manbij. And I think that's now going to be the next phase of this, is what Turkey chooses to do, and how the US chooses to respond and adapt or not, as the case may be, to Turkey's policies.
Manbij is going to be my next question, but before finishing up Afrin, this discussion is still going on in Turkey. When I say discussion, it is not a public discussion, because the public discussion is basically prohibited in Turkey. You cannot really say anything critical to Turkey's Afrin operation in Turkey. But in many areas, the discussion is whether the Turkey's taking over of Afrin is justified, as it says that Afrin was a national security threat for Turkey and Turkish cities by Afrin. What is your view? Do you think that Turkey's operation into Afrin is justified?
I think I actually wrote for Ahval at the time it was beginning that I thought Turkey had made a mistake by focusing on Afrin when it should have focused on Idlib, which was the more populous and more dangerous episode, because of the Assad regime and its allies clear that, and then it's another 2 million people that could flood into Turkey. That looks a bit different now, because that was partly based on the idea that there would be a terrible fight for Afrin city, and they didn't turn out to be, because the PKK stepped out of that trap that Turkey had laid for it and chose to withdraw. So it's more difficult to assess in that way. In terms of what Turkey's intentions were, I certainly think they were genuinely counter-terrorist in nature, and were what you would just basically call realpolitik. They were not. I know there is some argument that this is a kind of colonial venture, or it's neo-Ottomanism is sometimes the term used, and I don't think that's true. I think that some of the public rhetoric plays on those sentiments and those feelings for some of the AKP's base, but I don't think that that's the intention here. I think Turkey. My other point is whether morally justifiable or not, what's happened in Afrin, it was absolutely inevitable. The build-up of the PKK stateless along Turkey's border was going to provoke a reaction from Ankara at some point. And in many ways, it's just surprising that it didn't come earlier. So I think it's one of those things that the US, it's a side effect of the US anti-ISIS mission, which was so narrow in its focus that it ignored the political developments in Syria, and this is one of the consequences.
So let's move to Manbij. You touch a little bit on it, but the discussions are still going on. The Pentagon generals, as probably you remember, in about mid-February, went there and they said they're going to defend themselves. Last week, U.S. State Department spokesman stated that the U.S. forces are not leaving the area, but I think it's not about U.S. forces, but it's about the YPG, PKK-affiliated YPG staying there. Do you have any prediction how the Manbij is going to go down?
No, I don't think so. I think it's too difficult to predict because it's, as you say, I think you could say there are basically three options, which is that Turkey is bluffing, will not start an operation against Manbij, or if it does and the US stands its ground, Turkey will back down. Or the US is bluffing, and if Turkey starts an operation, the US will pull out. Or neither side is bluffing, and then it gets into a direct collision, which is the most dangerous outcome of all. But as you say, there are deep complexities within that, because even if the US agreed for the YPG to pull out east of the Euphrates, there's no guarantee they'd do it, because they have proven before that, especially in that area, they have interests of their own that they pursue no matter what. I mean, they were told the original Manbij deal, which is the main reason Turkey is so annoyed about this, was that the YPG would take over the city to kick ISIS out in 2016 and would then pull back and leave. And it didn't. The YPG pressed on west towards Afrin and even more dangerously towards Jarablus on the border, and it triggered the Euphrates Shield operation. So it's just, there are too many moving parts to say. You can see what the potential avenues are, but as to which between them it is, I couldn't say at this point.
So there is apparent disappointment on the side of the Syrian Kurds. YPG and the Syrian Democratic Forces, but mostly People's Protection Units are the affiliated group with the PKK in Turkey. They are disappointed with the US, that the US is not protecting. And Fabrice Balanche, about a couple of weeks ago, said that deal between the US and Syrian Kurds is already broken because the US is not protecting Syrian Kurds in Afrin. Do you think that the US, what is your suggestion that the US should do with the Syrian Kurds? Do you think it should abandon after 3.5 years of partnership on the ground?
No, I don't. I think there's, whatever any of us think about the choice of the YPG as the anti-ISIS instrument in 2014, there is now a structure in place that it's not even in Turkey's interest to unravel the Rojava structure east of the Euphrates in Syria, not in any kind of precipitous way anyway. So we are where we are with that kind of thing. And to abandon the YPG is dangerous for all kinds of reasons, because they would migrate straight into the Iranian column, among other things. So the best position, I think, for the US to try and pursue is to be the mediator between the YPG PKK and Turkey, which means, because the US is overbalanced so far in the YPG's direction, is correcting that and tipping back a bit in Turkey's direction, particularly over Manbij. But after that point is then drawing hard lines between the two of them and saying you won't go beyond any of that. And the US to position itself between two allies in a coalition, rather than at the moment where it risks losing both because it's antagonizing the YPG, because the YPG feels let down over Afrin, understandably, but it's also, it was advertised that the US wouldn't defend them in Afrin, and they seem to have bet that either the US would or the Russians would or could, which I don't think was true. And Turkey is annoyed because at the moment, the US presence in Turkey's mind is defending a terrorist statelet all along their border and is incubating a threat to them. So for Turkey at the moment, the US's withdrawal is in its interests. For the US to flip that and make it in Turkey's interest for it to stay, it would have to show that it had a handle on the YPG and could serve as both somebody that can control them and that can mediate between the two parties. But takes a big lift, and as you say, there is a lot of opposition to that, because particularly the Pentagon would rather pursue the anti-ISIS operation no matter what. And in that sense, Turkey is a problem because Turkey distracts the YPG from that mission. So it's unclear which way the US will go, and the statements about the US staying in in Manbij are on the record that maybe that will be the course they take. But it would require a policy shift from the US to get somewhere that is a bit more sustainable in the current situation, and I'm not sure that they will take that road.
Okay, my final question, just following up one of your earlier remarks that you don't think Turkey is colonial power in Afrin or other places, regions in northern Syria. Do you see any scenario Turkish forces are leaving northern Syria anytime soon, or you can also comment whether you think they should?
I don't see them losing. I should say I don't think they're colonial in intent. I think it's the same way as the US. I don't think was colonial in intent in the east of the country, but it's still got something that we would want to call a mandate, basically, over that area. So the names change on what we call these kind of occupations or these zones of influence, but they are, as you said, you could call them colonial. I think they have a lot of popular buy-in at this moment, especially for Turkey's in the north, because of, or at least potentially with the recovery of Tel Rifat. So that maybe Turkey would have more legitimacy in that way. And the US is, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that the SDF is currently the best potential governing structure in the east. Like the other choices are the Assad regime and ISIS at the moment. So the population are currently in the kind of honeymoon period with the SDF. I don't think it's in anybody's interest that either Turkey or the US pulls out immediately. No. Whether it's in either of their interests and whether they will actually stay long term, I'm not sure, or less sure about the US. I think Turkey will stay until it has another option, and I'm not sure that that's going to come anytime soon.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on today, and hopefully we'll continue these discussions in the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you.